All right, let's talk about sampling methods. First, let's consider why are we sampling? And we're going to do this discussion with a particular example. Suppose we want to know the percentage of people in the United States that have had COVID-19, or in other words, that have had a positive test for COVID-19. Well, to know the answer to that question, I would need to sample everyone in the United States? No, I don't need to ask everyone in the United States whether or not they've had COVID-19, right? There's too many people in the United States. If I were to ask everyone in the United States whether or not they've had COVID-19, that would be called a census, right? And we know that in the United States, the census is only done once every 10 years because it's a huge undertaking. So whenever we want to know something about the people in the United States, we don't do a census generally. Rather, what we do is we take a sample from the population, which is a smaller group, a smaller subset from the population. And then using that data collected on that smaller subset, we'll say something about the population. Okay. The easiest way that we can do this is with a simple random sample. Right? In a simple random sample, what we might do is maybe we'll have everyone's social security numbers, and we'll use a computer to randomly select numbers. Okay? So it's random which people get selected to be part of our sample. Okay? A potential problem with this simple random sample is that, say we were to have collected our data on 1,500 people in the United States, and none of them are really young or really old. All right, that could potentially be a problem because we know COVID, it does depend on your age, right? That there's some sort of age link to COVID. So, we might choose to do a systematic sample instead. In a systematic sample, we might order everyone according to their age. And what I'll do is I'll randomly select a starting point. So say I'll start with the 6th person. And then I will systematically sample everyone from there. So I could do every 10th person, every 20th person, etc. Okay, every 100th person, every 1,000th person. All right, so say I were to do every 10th person, then I would do 16, 26, 36, 46, etc. Okay. All right, so that's systematic. You order them according to some important feature, and then you systematically sample every certain number of people from that starting point. Okay? All right. Stratified sampling. Okay? In stratified sampling, what we may have noticed in that simple random sample is that, we didn't get data from a person in every state. So in stratified sampling, what I'll do is I'll group people according to the state that they live in, right? And then what I'll do is I'll take a random sample within every state. So California, I'll go ahead and collect, a few people. Idaho, I'll collect a few people, etc. So every state is going to have a certain number of people that we observe, that we collect data on. Okay. All right, next we have cluster sampling. All right, cluster sampling, it's similar to stratified sampling in that we're going to group people beforehand. So say I were to group them by county, all right? But unlike stratified sample, where I would then collect a certain number of people from every county, all right? So that's stratified sampling. In clustered sampling, what I'll do is I'll randomly select which counties I'm going to collect data on. Okay, so I'm not going to collect data on every county. Say I'll collect data on just like the green counties here. All right, the ones that are marked in green. So I will randomly select which counties I'm going to collect data on, and then I'll collect data on every person in that county. All right, so every person in the group or in the cluster will be asked whether or not they have had COVID-19. Okay, lastly, we have convenient sampling. And convenient sampling is exactly what it sounds like. It's what's convenient, right? It's not a great way for us to do sampling. It's generally discouraged. However, it could be a good place to start. So, it's not that it's completely useless. There is some use to it, but it wouldn't necessarily be what you would necessarily publish, or your final end all, say all, right? So in convenient sampling, this is exactly what it sounds like. You go to maybe your church, your school, your stores, and you ask the people around you whether or not they've had COVID-19. Okay, so the people that it's most easy for you to access, those are the people that you are going to ask.